Lucas Brandt was a postgraduate criminology student at Ludwig Maximilian University. He wasn't studying serial killers or mob history. His thesis focused on the use of cryptocurrency and anonymity tools in human trafficking. He was a gifted researcher with a habit of slipping past firewalls. A year into his research, Lucas had already contributed data to 3 international operations against human smuggling groups. But that winter, he made a discovery that pushed him far past any ethical boundary he thought he'd never cross. It started with a leaked .onion address buried in a seized zip archive from the Boys Town server takedown in Germany. The folder was unmarked. Inside, logs, screenshots, Bitcoin transactions, and one active URL, simply labeled Daisy in. Lucas dug in. Cross-referencing the files, he discovered that Daisy Chain was first registered on the darknet in late 2015. It operated in short bursts, about 48 hours at a time, before switching servers, mirrors, and gateways. Unlike most forums or hidden markets, this wasn't a place to buy anything. It was a lottery. Every 48 hours, verified members could enter a session by submitting 1.0 BTC. At the time, that was about $400. Those who entered had a chance to be selected to view what the administrators called a Chainlink session. The site's design was grotesquely minimal. Just a blood-red background, a black daisy symbol, and a rotating phrase. "We pull the petals, you watch the bloom." Lucas assumed it was fake. Some grotesque snuff forum baiting sick people with promises of content that didn't exist. Lucas copied the database, opened it in a sandboxed environment, and decrypted its contents. What he found would unravel his life. The logs detailed 77 separate sessions, spanning from 2015 to early 2016. Each log contained metadata: view count, Bitcoin contributions, selected actions, victim identifiers, codenamed as Flowers, Lily, Daisy, Rose, Iris. Each session appeared to be a live-streamed, interactive broadcast. Viewers voted in real time on what would happen next to the victim, with each vote tied to a Bitcoin transaction. The more money you paid, the more your vote counted. Actions were labeled euphemistically: bloom sur initiate pain, stem cut, restrict breathing, at pedal pull d dismember, wilt en session. But some logs used far less euphemistic language. And worse, embedded video hashes matched samples from an infamous dark web video that had circulated years earlier: Daisy's Destruction, the snuff film created by Australian predator Peter Scully. That was the moment Lucas realized the connection. This site was inspired by, and may have directly sourced content from, Scully's real victims. He wasn't looking at urban legend. He was looking at an active continuation. Lucas opened one session log at random. Session 72, titled Lily. The log listed a viewer count of 102. Over 9 BTC were transferred during the session, about $3,600 at the time. The victim's file was detailed with horrifying clinical precision. Gender, female, age 9. Compliance score, 81. Language, Tagalog. The interface allowed votes for everything, from clothing removal to disfigurement. Chat messages were logged, mostly in English, Russian, and Japanese. Some were jokes, some were instructions. One said, "Make her thank us after each command. This one needs to learn humility." Another user responded, "She was in Daisy 3, right? I remember her teeth." Lucas dry heaved. Then he noticed something else: IP logs. Though anonymized, one cluster of access logs originated from Frankfurt, right near BKA headquarters. Someone inside law enforcement had watched. Lucas reported the logs to a Europol contact he trusted. Within days, the archive vanished from his system. The external hard drive he had stored it on became unreadable. He received a message through Proton Mail. "You opened the flower. You can't close it now. Watch." Attached, a 12-second video. It showed a girl in a concrete room. Her hands were bound. Her mouth was gagged. A red daisy had been painted on the wall behind her. She looked directly at the camera, at Lucas, and she whispered, "Help me, please, they're not done." The video ended with an IP address, scrambled, but local to Stuttgart. Lucas reported it again, but no one responded this time. 2 days later, Lucas's apartment door was left ajar. His computer was destroyed, his backup drives were gone. Pinned to his refrigerator with a kitchen knife was a Polaroid. It showed a live stream interface, a countdown timer, and below it, Session 99, Lucas blooming soon. Lucas fled Munich and went underground. For months, he lived off prepaid phones and burner email addresses, sleeping in hostels and friends' basements, but the images never left him. He began posting under an alias on deep web investigator forums, revealing fragments of the daisy chain system. Other hackers came forward. Some had seen the same daisy symbol. Others had found crossover files between daisy chain and Hurt to the Core, another defunct torture ring. A pattern emerged. Victims were sourced from Southeast Asia, primarily the Philippines and Malaysia. The sessions were hosted in rotating safe houses, often linked to real estate owned by shell companies in Eastern Europe. Some of the Bitcoin transactions were traced to wallets used in human trafficking ransom drops. One of the addresses was identical to the one used in the ransom of Madeline Gomez, a 12-year-old kidnapped from California in 2017. Her body was never found. In 2022, a post appeared on an encrypted dark web board. "We are proud to announce Session 100 final, streamed live, full bloom." This time it wasn't hidden. It was a message to those who already knew. Session 100 didn't have a countdown timer. It had a location: Warsaw, Poland. No other details. The stream began at midnight. The screen was black for the first 5 minutes. Then, a single metal chair. A person strapped into it, a bag over their head. When the bag was removed, Lucas's face stared directly into the camera. He was emaciated, lips split, a fresh cut across his cheek. Viewers cheered. "Welcome home, Flower Boy." Aftermath. No body was found. No authorities claimed to see the stream. But in May 2023, a hacker group called Mothnet released a memory dump of the DayZika and voting server. It confirmed over 123 sessions took place. Over 2.3 million in Bitcoin was processed. Victims included children from 6 continents, and at least 14 adult abductees used as trainers or intermediaries. In the final session, the chat log showed one last vote. Wilt, end life, 63%. Keep, continue torture, 37%. The stream cut out before the result was seen. The last message from the admin read, "The bloom never ends. We seed what you water." In 2020, 26-year-old Niels Weber worked quietly as a junior digital forensics technician for the German Federal Criminal Police Office, BKA. He didn't carry a badge or wear a gun. He sat in a white-lit room surrounded by monitors, scrubbing through the most putrid corners of the internet. The public thought that the dark web was mostly drugs and guns. It wasn't. Those were the storefronts. The real rot lived in private rings, the encrypted forums, the multi-factor protected video servers buried under petabytes of misdirection. Niels was one of the unlucky few whose job was to peer into these nightmares, not just as a detective, but as a custodian of evidence, an archivist of trauma. One day, in a joint Europol sting on a now-defunct abuse network called Boys Town, Niels and his team decrypted a 9-terabyte drive labeled Project Cerberus.vault. Inside were thousands of folders, each tagged with a pseudonym and timestamp. The folders weren't sorted by date or victim. They were sorted by vote results. Session 00914, Daisy 76 votelog tect. Session 0320 Timmy20 vrupgrade.log. Session 00401 visitor x mp4. These weren't just abuse materials. They were interactive sessions. And the logs confirmed what investigators had feared for years, that the Red Room rumors, the ones dismissed as urban legends, had a seed of truth. Niels opened one of the session folders. The video was a feed from a dim, bare room. Concrete walls, medical lights overhead. A girl sat in the center, not older than 10. A masked man stood behind a laptop on a cart. What disturbed Niels wasn't the scene. It was the live chat overlay on the right side of the screen. This wasn't a recording of abuse. It was a real-time streamed event, logged frame by frame, complete with audience voting. Viewers chose actions, not passively. They paid per vote. The higher the bid, the heavier their influence. One chat log read, Ghost, burn left hand, 0.3 BTC. Lilith Root, use clamps, double points, 0.5 BTC. Moderator, votes received, executing. And then it happened on screen, in perfect sync. The girl screamed silently. No audio. It had been muted on the stream, likely to keep the content palatable for a certain class of viewer, the kind that wanted control, not chaos. This wasn't sadism. It was curated horror. Niels turned away. He vomited in the bin under his desk. Then he flagged the file, encrypted it, and moved on. But the names haunted him. Ghost 9, Lilith Root, Moderator. He would see them again. The team soon realized that Project Cerberus wasn't just footage. It was a database. Names, shipping manifests, even feeding schedules. Some folders were tagged Return to Source or discarded after level 6. Others simply said sold to Room Theta. Room Theta? They searched their internal database and found nothing. But cross-referencing the file hashes in international sting operations unearthed one clue, a tiny snippet of metadata from a South Korean file server seized in 2018. It was a thumbnail image showing a child sitting in a high-tech enclosure, wearing a VR headset with the label Theta 3 Ready State.jpg. The backdrop matched no known institution or facility, no furniture, just padded walls and ceiling-mounted speakers. More digging led them to a blockchain address. Wallet activity showed a steady stream of income, nearly 412 BTC between 2016 and 2020. Outgoing payments had notes attached using OP return codes with messages like Theta Rotation 5 complete, Session 18 archived. Subject 07 reached compliance, but there was no login portal, no server to breach. Whoever ran it ran dark infrastructure, invisible unless you already had the keys, until a file landed in Niels's inbox. No sender, no signature. Against protocol, Niels opened it on an air-gapped machine. The program was password protected with a prompt that read, "Would you like to witness?" He entered a generic key. The screen flickered. A minimalist UI appeared, stark black with a single button. Access Archive, Observer Mode. He clicked it. What followed was a pre-recorded experience from a former viewer's perspective. It simulated the interface used by Theta clients. There were sessions, each labeled with a subject ID, behavior metrics, and a pricing tier. But the sessions weren't just viewable. They were interactive replays, showing how the viewer had voted. The interface showed Ethereum payments made midstream, facial recognition for victim compliance tracking, and AI-generated nudges encouraging users to escalate their engagement for loyalty points. This wasn't snuff. This was gamified torture. The victims, some as young as 6, were referred to as units. They were groomed in tiers: emotive response, obedience reflex, social detachment. And their progression through Theta rooms was tracked like leveling characters in an RPG. What broke Niels was a feature labeled Mentor Mode, Train Your Own Unit, Beta Access. He clicked. A small, shaking girl appeared on screen. The program offered multiple choice prompts. Ask her to smile. Ask her to apologize. Punish for hesitation. Reward for silence. When he hovered over Punish, the video glitched, and the girl looked directly into the lens as if she saw him. He shut it down, but not before downloading everything. He gave the data to his superiors. Within 48 hours, he was suspended. The official reason: unauthorized access of compromised files. But Niels knew the truth. Someone didn't want this pursued, not because it wasn't real, but because it was too real, too big, too connected. A week later, a friend in Europol called him at 3:43 a.m., whispering, "Drop it. We found donor logs, high-ranking names, European, American, private contractors, NGOs, journalists. You dig deeper, they'll burn you alive." Niels ignored the warning. He leaked part of the archive anonymously to a private threat intel group known as Chimera Collective. Within days, snippets appeared on dark web forums, video stills, hash files, decompiled code fragments. A redacted file from the leak reached the media. A Spanish news outlet ran the headline, "Interpol insider confirms real Red Room network operated for elite audiences." The story ran for 4 hours. Then it disappeared. Every URL dead, every video scrubbed, every archive purged. The journalist who published the story, Ana Villarroel, died in a house fire 10 days later. Official cause: electrical fault. But Niels knew. The server that burned, it was running from a solar battery. Niels went dark, changed names, moved to a remote cabin in the Black Forest. He lives without internet, no electricity, no traceable signals, but he still receives messages, printed ones, hand-delivered, no postage, slipped under his door. The latest one said, "Theta is not a place. It's a protocol. Still live, still evolving, and you watched." He burns every letter, but he dreams of the girl in the video, the way she looked directly at him, the way she whispered, "Are you choosing now?" And sometimes when he blinks, he sees the interface again. The timer ticking down, the choices flashing, and a voice behind his eyes asking, "Would you like to witness?" When 23-year-old Amara Hill, a freelance cybersecurity researcher in London, stumbled across a buried dark web forum called Iniquitas, she assumed it was just another defunct archive, probably drug logs or fraud dumps. She was wrong. Hidden inside a compressed PNG file within a subfolder called Old Toys was a 90-page HTML document titled Playroom eHTML. No styling, no images, just block text and ASCII borders, but its contents shook her. Each page was a detailed transcript of user interactions, chat logs, and Bitcoin transactions associated with something called Playroom E, a private, invite-only video platform on the dark web where viewers paid to interact with children in real time. The log spanned 2 years, 2014 to 2016. It appeared to be a mirror of a back-end system. What made it worse? Embedded in the source code were live vote tallies and trigger logs, suggesting users could select actions, like a twisted video game. Request spanking, force silence, introduce insects, mute screams, all of it time-stamped, logged, and archived like system telemetry. Amara backed out immediately. She'd worked with UK law enforcement before, tipping off the NCA about ransomware groups. But this felt too big, too dangerous. She anonymized herself completely and sent the file to an encrypted Dropbox used by Europol. Within an hour, she got a response she hadn't expected. "We've seen this before, it's real, don't investigate further." In 2015, 8-year-old Lucia Mendes vanished from a church in Porto, Portugal. Her case received international attention. No ransom demand, no trace. Surveillance footage showed a man in a gray van, his face obscured. 2 years later, during the international raid known as Operation Blackwrist, authorities found a reference to Lucia Dam in a decrypted backup server belonging to Peter Scully's network in the Philippines. The entry read, "Lucia Demder, Session 5, excellent compliance, assigned to Playroom E-Rotation, ID LX2374. Interpol made no public comment. Her case quietly went cold. In 2017, a South Korean man named Sun Jong-woo was arrested for operating a dark web child exploitation site known as Welcome to Video, one of the largest ever uncovered. Over 220 people across dozens of countries were arrested following the takedown. Buried in the site's blockchain transaction logs was a suspicious cross-reference, a wallet address labeled simply as root E, which had sent 14 BTC to Welcome to Video, but had also received transactions from multiple addresses linked to Playroom E. A Europol analyst leaked an internal memo on an anonymous whistleblower forum in 2020, which read, "Root E may be the coordinator or architect of Playroom E. No identifying metadata. Suspected use of hardware cold wallets and untraceable cold email infrastructure. Operates through proxy servers in Eastern Europe, likely Moldova or Ukraine. No suspect located. Last known activity on 2020-01-11, possibly resurfacing under new aliases." In 2021, a cybersecurity team in the Netherlands working for a child protection NGO intercepted unusual data packets on Tor. Deep packet inspection revealed video chunks being broadcast via peer-to-peer relays, obfuscated through an unfamiliar codec called NewTDCT. They decrypted and reconstructed a portion of the stream. It showed a white-walled room, sterile and bright, with painted murals of cartoon characters on the walls, a mock daycare setting. A small child sat at a plastic table coloring. Then came the pop-ups. The screen was overlaid with a translucent menu, simple in design. Choose next action. Offer candy turn lights red. Play loud sound. Bring assistant. Votes were tallied. Once an option reached 51%, it was enacted in real time. The feed showed a gloved adult entering, executing the vote's result, sometimes with psychological manipulation, sometimes with harm. Chat logs showed usernames discussing levels, favorites, and rotations. One viewer typed, "This one doesn't cry. Might be trained. Can we get her in VR room?" Another replied, "That's room F, invite only." The stream ran for 28 minutes. Then it cut out. Authorities never found the source. IP relays were spoofed through layers of abandoned military-grade tech, suggesting a level of sophistication beyond normal darknet operators. In late 2022, German police arrested 4 men linked to Boys Town, another large-scale child exploitation site. While interrogating one suspect in Dresden, a forensic investigator recovered logs indicating mirrored storage used to archive Playroom E materials. Before they could execute the warrant, the physical server, hidden inside a residential apartment, caught fire. An anonymous user on a dark web board posted photos hours later showing the charred remains, including a rack-mount chassis with E-rotation scratched into the front panel. The post was titled, "Burned but not buried. Room G is ready." In March 2023, Amara, who had long since deleted everything and changed her name, received a USB stick mailed anonymously to her new address in Glasgow. No return address. It was labeled E2023 Survivor A. Inside was one encrypted folder, After bypassing the simple password hash, playwithme22, she found a 6-minute video. It showed a young woman in her late teens, sitting in what looked like a safe house. She was holding a photo of herself at age 8. The girl looked into the camera and said, trembling, "My name is Lucia Mendez. I was taken. I was in Playroom E. We were trained not to cry. If we cried, the viewers voted for worse. If we obeyed, we were rotated." She went on to describe being filmed for hundreds of sessions. She said she was one of the lucky ones because she learned to be silent, like they wanted. The final line haunted Amara the most. "There were 9 of us when I was taken. I don't know how many are left, but they're making a new room now. They want us to train the next ones." Amara reported the drive. It was picked up by international authorities. Lucia was never seen again. A private Telegram group surfaced in May 2024, offering exclusive content for select clients. The group had 48 members, each with verified crypto wallets containing over 5 BTC. The welcome message read, "Congratulations, you've been chosen to participate in Room H Beta. We are no longer offering just content. We're offering control. AI-assisted sessions, live behavioral testing, no streams, no leaks, full discretion." By the time investigators got a warrant, the group had vanished. Only one thing remained. An audio message, distorted, robotic, looped. "Children are made. Monsters are trained. We're just the mirror." Luka Radovic was a 29-year-old freelance penetration tester, one of the best in Europe. Employed by companies to break into their own systems, Luka made a living hunting for vulnerabilities. But off the books, he was part of a closed, encrypted Discord server known as Grotto, a gathering of hackers, darknet archivists, and data archaeologists who scavenged and documented digital horrors from the deepest parts of the internet. Most of the time, it was just files, old Silk Road transaction logs, creepy pasta-tier video dumps, doxed emails of busted cybercriminals. Occasionally, someone would upload something more visceral, chat logs from forums long deleted, forum archives of real CP rings taken down in Interpol raids, or stories behind infamously disappeared dark websites like Pink Meth or Black Room. But one night, Luka received a direct message on Signal from a contact he hadn't heard from in over a year. The username was Chokehold, and the message contained just text. He knew the format, a dead drop. He isolated a burner machine, air-gapped it, booted into a live Kali Linux distro, and connected through multiple relays. Inside the FTP folder was a compressed file labeled streamrec44.ts, dated June 2, 2016. No metadata, no owner, 4.3 GB in size. He played the video. The footage began with choppy night vision-style video of a narrow room, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, and a single metal chair bolted to the floor. A woman in her 20s sat strapped into it. Her eyes were swollen shut. One of her fingers was clearly broken, bent backwards unnaturally. The only sound was the low hum of ventilation. Then a masked man entered holding a tablet. He lifted it and showed it to the woman. The tablet displayed a live chat overlay, obscured usernames, all reacting in real time. One by one, votes began appearing at the bottom of the screen. Nail removal, 3 votes. Burn with acid, 5 votes. Let her go, 1 vote. The masked man nodded toward the highest vote. From a tray, he selected a syringe filled with a clear substance. He approached the woman, injecting her neck as she struggled. Her body stiffened, and the feed suddenly cut to black. Luka paused the file. His palms were sweating. He wasn't new to horror. He'd pulled source code from pedophile honeypots, decompiled malware that spied on people through their webcams, and watched too many unspeakable things while assisting law enforcement. But this was different. The production quality, the mechanics, the live polling, it all hinted at something industrial, scalable, marketed. He skipped ahead. The feed resumed. The woman was now limp, drooling, tied to a different rig, hands bolted above her head. Medical equipment beeped softly in the background. Again, votes, brand her. Remove eye, pull tongue. This time, Luka shut the machine off. It took several minutes for his breathing to return to normal. He went back to the FTP folder, expecting that to be the only file. But it wasn't. There were 44 folders, each named after a victim, each containing footage, chat logs, and transaction histories, dates ranging from 2013 to 2016. Bitcoin wallets showed consistent payments ranging between 1, 2, and 3 BTC, depending on the session. Some addresses were still active. Luka verified a few through blockchain explorers. Some even linked back to now-dead sites like Hard Candy and Area 51 Rooms. He created a report and encrypted it. Then he did what he'd done only once before. Contacted the Bundeskriminalamt, BKA, Germany's federal police. The agency had worked with him on a child exploitation case 2 years earlier. Luca passed the archive to a contact named Hannes Gruber, who promised to get it to Europol's cybercrime center. But things went dark fast. 2 weeks later, Luca received a phone call from an unknown Serbian number. A distorted male voice said simply, "Room 45 begins in 4 days." He tried to trace the call. It was a virtual number relayed through 5 countries. Then came the emails. Screenshots of his apartment, time-stamped 12 minutes earlier, a picture of his mother leaving her retirement home. His own childhood photos, pulled from a private cloud account he hadn't used in a decade. Luca wiped his machines and fled. Wrocław, Poland. A house fire in a residential suburb took the lives of a couple and their 4-year-old daughter. Local police chalked it up to an electrical short. But a hacker from Grotto named Misra404 found a deleted post on a Onion forum claiming responsibility, bragging that Room 45 was poetic. A screenshot accompanied it, showing the child, gagged and bound in a garage that matched the house's layout. Metadata confirmed it was taken 2 hours before the fire. Nobody in the mainstream media picked up on the pattern. 2019, Prague. Interpol raids a warehouse hosting servers in the Czech Republic. Among hundreds of terabytes of dark web market data, they find fragments of something labeled R44 voting backend. A Django-based site backend with live polling, streaming infrastructure, and login pages protected by military-grade authentication protocols. Nothing useful is recovered. Most of the hard drives had been wiped using custom firmware-level nuking protocols. One of the analysts described it as cyber terrorism in its most distilled form. The official press release made no mention of Room 44. 2020 unknown location. A short clip surfaces on Telegram. It's only 16 seconds. A man sits in front of the camera. His face is bloodied. Behind him is a chalkboard with R47 written in red. He says something in German. Ich war ein Zuschauer. Ich zahlte. Ich stimmte ab. Ich werde dafür brennen. Translation? I was a viewer. I paid. I voted. I will burn for it. Then a muffled scream, then fire, then nothing. Today, Luka Radovic is presumed dead. He vanished in 2020. His apartment was found unlocked. Laptop destroyed. No trace of him has ever been found. But Grotto still exists. Smaller now, invitation only, paranoid. And sometimes users share rumors of an ongoing series called the 50 Rooms Project, of wealthy clients watching from yachts and embassies, of voting interfaces now integrated with crypto wallets for seamless interaction, of victims no longer being kidnapped, but purchased through deepfake identity brokering on child grooming sites. And most chilling of all, some believe Room 50 will be the finale, a live-streamed global broadcast accessible only to participants. No one knows when. But a post appeared on an encrypted forum this June, signed simply, R50 or judgment, you decide, we only execute. In 2015, Lucas was a second-year computer science student in Munich, sharp with code but socially withdrawn. He spent most nights buried in obscure programming forums, fascinated by encryption and anonymity. The deeper he got into privacy tech, the more often he heard the same term whispered like a dare: Red Rooms. He'd seen Reddit threads claiming they were just urban legends, pay-per-view torture streams supposedly run through the dark web. But others swore they were real, that for a few thousand in Bitcoin you could not only watch but interact, voting on what would happen to the victim next. He wanted to believe it was all hoax, just cryptid-tier tech lore, until one night he found something he wasn't meant to. It began with an invite-only Onion link he discovered buried in the comments of a dead Pastabin mirror. It was in Spanish, titled La Puerta Roja. The site was bare bones, black background, red font. No landing page, no index. Just one line. Enter BTC address for access. Minimum 0.8 BTC, no refunds. At the time, 0.8 BTC was roughly $200. Lucas hesitated. He had about $600 in crypto from a freelance bug bounty he'd landed. He told himself it was research, just a peek behind the curtain. He sent the payment and waited. 12 hours later, he received a PGP encrypted email. The decrypted message read, "Session begins Friday, UTC 0200. Use Tails, OS VPN mandatory, no screen recording. Violators will be doxxed." He followed every instruction. On Friday, he booted into Tails, routed through triple VPN layers, launched Tor, and connected to the private stream. The interface was brutalist: a black screen, a grainy live feed, and a vertical chat box on the right. Viewers were anonymous, tagged by hexadecimal aliases. Most chatted in Russian or broken English. Lucas watched silently as a timer ticked down. When it hit 0, the camera feed came alive. A woman sat tied to a metal chair in a concrete room. Her mouth was taped. Eyes darted, terrified. A man in a balaclava entered from the edge of the frame, holding a cattle prod. The chat exploded. X93FA2. Is she Eastern European? D34DBY. Make her scream. Root admin. Voting starts in 60 seconds. Below the feed, options appeared. Shock, cut, burn. Let her speak. Votes cost money. The more you paid, the more weight your vote carried. Lucas stared, paralyzed. This couldn't be real. It had to be staged. A snuff LARP. But the panic in the woman's eyes was too raw. He watched, sick to his stomach, as option number 2 won. The man returned, now with a utility knife. The rest unfolded like a nightmare, slow, deliberate, and silent except for the sound of muffled screams. Lucas closed the stream. He ran to the bathroom and vomited. But he came back the next night. Each stream had a different victim. The rooms were similar: underground, industrial, possibly Eastern Europe or Central Asia. Some were men, some were women. The chat always cheered. The worst part? Lucas began to recognize usernames. Regulars, high rollers. They treated it like sport. One guy even joked he was watching it on a second monitor during a Zoom work meeting. What pulled Lucas in wasn't the gore. It was the horror of how real it was, how organized, how normalized. Then, the 6th night, something changed. The camera angle was off, too close. Then the screen glitched. When it returned, the victim's face was visible in full. She was bruised, terrified, and Lucas recognized her. Anna, a girl from his university. She sat in the front row of his AI ethics seminar. The chat was celebrating, but Lucas stared in shock. He opened the university site and confirmed it. She hadn't been in class that week. Panic set in. He took screenshots, downloaded the feed, and compiled everything he could into a secure thumb drive. But who could he go to? The police? He'd have to admit he paid to watch. He reached out to an investigative journalist he knew from a subreddit, sent the drive through encrypted dead drops. The journalist responded 2 days later. Footage is real, already linked to a known human trafficking ring in Moldova, going dark for now. The next day, Lucas's VPN provider sent him an urgent alert. Someone had attempted to access his account from an IP in Bucharest. He shut everything down, destroyed the hard drives, moved out of his apartment, changed names, dropped out of school, went completely off-grid. 2 months later, Anna was found alive, barely, in a shipping container in Constanza. 4 others weren't so lucky. The story never made international headlines. Interpol raided a few dummy warehouses. Arrests were made, but most walked free. The server network was never found. Lucas still lives under an assumed identity. He never uses the internet without encryption, never sleeps without a gun. Every so often he receives a blank envelope in the mail. No return address, just a red dot sticker inside. And he knows they haven't forgotten. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.